Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. This show is sponsored by our members who made donations. We'd like to give them a very big thank you. We have to cover the monthly costs of the radio station's software, bandwidth, phone lines and phone calls to be able to continue with the radio show. And thank you for listening. Today I'm joined by Chris, who lives in Scotland. Thank you for joining me today, Chris.
Hello, nice to be here.
Well, I've interviewed you before and you've told us your MS story. For those people that don't know your story, could you tell us, when you were diagnosed and what your MS was like at that time?
Okay, I was originally diagnosed on briefly, just a short time after returning from a holiday in Mexico. And at the end of the holiday, I was very fatigued, I'd call it now. And I started to have very bad pins and needles starting from my feet. And I'd just moved house, and so this was my first ever visit to the GP. And he immediately seemed he questioned lots of things and happened to mention that I'd had optical neuritis, he could see from my records nearly 2 years earlier, and said, come back to me in a few days and we'll see how you are. Now, I'm an engineer, a bit of a scientist. I wanted to know, so I went back a couple of days later and I was like, right, I'm not leaving here until you tell me what you think it is. And by then, the pins and needles were actually spreading up my legs. I wasn't feeling brilliant, but I just thought I was shattered from the holiday. It had been a great holiday, but quite tiring, and it was very, very hot. And he said, oh, you've told me you've got private health care, so I think I need to refer you. And he said, I'm going to refer you to a neurologist. And I kind of looked at him, kind of questioningly. And he said, well, I know you're going to ask me, so I think you might have MS. And it didn't take long to see the consultant and to have the MRI and the lumbar puncture, etc. And he said, by then, the pins and needles were kind of fading a little, but hadn't gone. But I suppose I'd just got used to them. And the specialist said, yeah, I'm fairly certain you've got it, but I think it's early days, and actually there's not much I can do anyway. I lived in England then, and the beta pherons and that hadn't reached there. They were still quite new. This is about, how many years ago? 22 years ago, I think. So I kind of went on my way. The one positive thing that did happen straight away was I went to a local health food shop and was just looking for any information and things. And they asked me about what I was looking for, and I said, I was just wondering if you had any books on maybe MS, diet, or whatever, just guessing. And they were about to give a talk, and they were talking about taking good oils and things. So that's the only thing that I did for my MS in the early days. I have to say, I didn't do anything else very positive in that I was working 80 hours a week. I was a very senior manager. I loved my job. I played hard as well. And I had little ups and downs, but for quite a few years it wasn't anything major, so I just kind of ignored it, really. I then moved house, moved jobs, started a new relationship, which led to the moving house and moving jobs, etc. And I thought, well, I'll maybe take things a little easier for a while, because I didn't think I'd be living in the place I was going to live in for that long. It was a temporary thing. So I started to take things a little easier, and I started to develop eye problems. I was very fatigued all the time. Didn't know that word. I was just tired as far as I knew. That kind of thing was going on. And then the eye problems were getting worse. And then I moved again, started another new job, and got another dose of optic neuritis, and I was just feeling generally grotty. I went to see a neurologist because I'd moved to Scotland by then, and he told me I didn't have MS. I then spent 8 years feeling pretty awful, but okay-ish, managing, but working less and less, not dealing with stress at all, and left without a diagnosis. I got tested for lots of other autoimmune conditions. His feeling was that the MRI didn't show enough and he wouldn't do another lumbar puncture. Roll on, I think it was 8 years, very bad optic neuritis, and other things had started to happen that I had no idea were MS. Cognitive problems, I couldn't focus. I was an engineer, and there I was sitting looking at a spreadsheet, and it just was like a load of lines and things that meant nothing to me. I couldn't even work out how to put a sentence together some days. It was so bad. And I was pulling over on the side of the motorway with fatigue and things like that. So I got referred yet again to a neurologist, and yes, they confirmed I had MS. Within maybe 6 weeks, I think, I'd met the person who first told me about LDN, and it maybe took a couple of weeks for them to tell me, but it was good, it was lucky. I'd gone to a local MS charity where they have a centre, and I'd met this person, and she happened to mention something. So after I'd heard her mention it once, twice, after I'd say a couple more weeks, I asked her, what's this medication then? And she said, it's called LDN. And I said, oh. And she said, I haven't been able to get it prescribed, so she said, you might not be able to. So I said, oh, well, I'll look into it. And one of the things I learned through my career, I was very good at research and things. And I rang Linda. And Linda immediately put me in touch with first of all, pointed me at the website, showed me all the, told me all the information I could get. I started talking to my GP, but he wasn't interested. So Linda pointed me towards the Dixon's chemist in Glasgow. I'm very lucky. I live near Glasgow, and Dixon's have got to be, I don't know, I quote that they're maybe the European experts on LDN. I think they are anyway. And immediately started getting help from them and was able to find from the website how to get a private prescription, etc. I've now been taking it, I can't remember now, 10, 11 years, I think. And I'm still paying for it privately, but it's very affordable. And my immediate benefit, which is still the major one I get from it, was that I used to hit a brick wall of fatigue, just completely come to a stop, hence pulling over on the side of motorways. And I don't get that anymore. Yes, I occasionally get fatigue, but I feel it coming on, or I manage it because I now know that I need to rest more and do certain things. But it was just amazing, almost immediately. And within a few months, I think, I started to realise that my brain was less foggy. I could think things through better. I could analyse things. I wasn't so worried about not being able to put a sentence together. I still had odd things, which anyone who knows MS, sometimes you don't use the right word, but my friends got used to me by then and were kind of made a joke about it, and it was okay. But I would say that lack of fatigue and that just generally feeling slightly better, and it helped my mood as well. I started to be able to do more to help myself, so I was able to walk a bit more and things like that. So those have been the main things. What I didn't know until maybe a couple of years later, when I actually stopped it for a while, huge financial problems and lots of things going on anyway, so I stopped it for a few months. And I suddenly discovered I had pain I didn't know I had, and the LDN had been masking it, had been keeping the pain away, so it's been helping me with that as well. I recommend it all the time. I would not stop, and I just think that the LDN Research Trust as well has just been fantastic. They do such good work, and I would say it's got so little side effects for such a small number of people. It's well worth trying, whatever your condition.
One thing that people would probably want to ask you is you've had bouts of optic neuritis throughout the years. Have you had any flare-ups of optic neuritis whilst being on LDN?
Once very mildly, but I had fallen and badly smashed the top of my arm, and my balance went, and my eye went for about 4 weeks, and that was all. That's the only time I've ever had it in between.
Okay.
Yeah, so amazing, really.
And apart from the other little niggles that you might have occasionally, have you had anything major MS-wise happen to you since being on LDN?
No, I just get better and better.
I mean,
I manage it very carefully, and I take rest time, and I don't overheat, and lots of things. All my friends know that I'm always carrying a fan with me and things because heat affects me. But no, I can't work still at the moment, but I do a lot of volunteering and things, and the work is the one thing, but that's partly because MS is so unpredictable. If I did overdo it, then suddenly I'd need to take time. Even if I weren't feeling too terrible, I'd feel I'd need to take the time to rest to prevent any exacerbation. Yeah. So I've learned a lot about it. But the LDN has been, it was almost like it kick-started me in being able to manage my MS, I suppose.
Yeah. Now, MS is a progressive disease. And would you say your MS hasn't progressed in that time?
Definitely not. In fact, I've stopped having MRIs. The last time I saw the consultant, he said, "Oh, well, everything's very much quietened down." And he tried to put it down to my age and hormones and things like that. He said, "Well, you don't need to come anymore. I'm here if I need you." And I said, "Well, I won't be seeing you, I can't imagine." So I left, and that was that. And I've seen him in the distance. I do still keep in contact with an MS nurse just to keep them up to date with how I'm doing, and to kind of record it and things like that. And in fact, I've got one nurse who's very supportive of LDN, one not so. So they're always very interested to see how you're doing. And I've seen my consultant in the corridor, and he just smiled at me. So,
well, that's amazing. Well, what can I say? We've come to the end of the time, and thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story with us. And maybe we'll catch up with you again in a few years' time and see if you're still in remission.
I believe I will be, yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you for having joined us today.
Bye-bye.
This show is sponsored by our members who made donations. We'd like to give them a very big thank you. We have to cover the monthly costs of the radio station's software, bandwidth, phone lines and phone calls to be able to continue with the radio show. And thank you for listening. Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.